Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. We are blessed with good health, inshallah, and also desire to learn the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let's start off our class with intentions of seeking knowledge and teaching. I intend to seek knowledge and to teach, to benefit myself and to benefit others, to remind myself and to remind others, to profit myself and to profit others, to urge adherence to the book of Allah and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to invite to guidance and to guide to that which is good, seeking the face of Allah, His pleasure, His closeness, His reward, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's continue on with our Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم ارزقنا يا ربي فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافيتي يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم افتح علينا فتوح العارفين وفقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل واهدنا إلى سواء السبيل. اللهم انفعنا وارفعنا وعرفنا بالعلم النافع وانفعنا به أنفسنا وأهلنا وأوطاننا وديارنا وجميع المسلمين يا إله العالمين. آمين 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 يا رب العالمين. Alhamdulillah, we continue on with our legacy. We are saviors and saviors of Islamic spirit, part 2. Shaykh al-Islam Hafiz Ibn Taymiyyah, he's from 10 Rabiul Awal, 661 after Hijrah, so it's about 660 years after Hijrah, right? Until 728 after Hijrah, Zulqa'idah. All right, so that's about the 13th century, 14th century. It's Shaykh Taymiyyah, intellectual atmosphere. So we went through political, we went through social atmosphere. We want to look at the situation then and why his presence is critical and why he moves into the various lessons, teachings that he has. Barring a few exceptions, we find in the century preceding Ibn Taymiyyah widespread educational efforts and plentiful writings on numerous subjects, but by and large, most of the literature produced during this period lacks depth of thought and profundity and can be classified as elucidations and interpretations of the earlier works. So he's saying that the works, there are writings and teachings and subjects, but most of the works are not deep enough. Says that it's just mere interpretations of the earlier works. So this lack of originality was an outcome of the stratification of juristic schools, which, content to remain within the inviolable bounds of their own making, rejected the least deviation from the teachings of their masters. So this is the juristic school will be the 4 schools, mainly the 4 schools. So there were other schools, the 4 schools of fiqh, which is we are familiar with Hanafi, Hanbali, Maliki, and Shafi'i. Right, as they say, this because of the layering of the schools. That means that the schools have decided on what is coming and everything. So there is most of the lessons were not original enough. That's what he's trying to say. So content to remain within the inviolable bounds of their own making. That means these are the lessons that are formulated by the various scholars, by the various imams. So it is just bound by that. All right. So any deviation from these teachings are rejected. In principle, all the 4 juristic schools of Orthodox Islam were deemed to be right, but the votaries of each regarded the interpretation of their own school as the only faithful version of the divine ordinances. So, of course, where most of us are concerned, right, all of them are right, are correct. Of course, there are differences. We know the differences exist within the 4 madhabs, but the differences cannot be considered as wrong. They have their basis on why they are different in the way they interpret the hadith and the Quran, and the hadith that explains the Quran. And we have gone through that quite a bit. Hamza Yusuf also explained why they exist, their differences, right? Mainly because of the words, the terms, and also because of the classification and the use of various hadiths and such. Right. So, but the reality is that although all of them are right in their respective sense, but the hardcore people who are attached to the school, who embrace the school, they are the ones that's a big problem. Right. So they don't they consider their version as the only right version, and they do not agree with the other versions. The only consideration they could show to others was to concede that the exposition of the law by their own imam, though largely correct, might contain a few mistakes, but that of the others were likely to be correct only on a few points, but were much more faulty. So that's their problem. There is this differences of opinion. They consider their imams as being almost all right, although some actually consider them as infallible, which is not a proper term to use on anyone, because no one is infallible except Rasulullah SAW. And so there is this unhappiness, there's this quarrels, there's this bickering and things like that, because they consider others to be faulty. Nobody likes to be called faulty, especially when our imams, for example, most of us are following the opinion of Imam Shafi'i. And Imam Shafi'i, we know, is a very learned person, and he's a hafiz. He knows lots of hadiths, thousands of hadiths, and his Arabic command of Arabic is very, very strong. Right, and he travels far and wide and that is why he exposed to more hadiths than Imam Malik, most probably because Imam Malik just confined himself to Medina. Nevertheless, being in Medina doesn't mean he is not exposed to lots of hadiths, because Medina is a center of pilgrimage. Also, I mean, those who go to pilgrimage from Makkah would come by Medina to visit Rasulullah SAW. So he was exposed to many other hadiths and such. So they have their opinions, and their opinions are not wrong. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah has said that there is mercy in the differences of opinion here. The followers of every juristic school then consider their own sect to be rightly guided, correct, and Allah ordained, while the chief effort of their learned theologians have been diverted towards producing arguments proving the preeminence of the precursors of their own juristic schools over all others. So instead of working on the teachings, right, they actually end up having arguments on why their opinion is the correct opinion. So this is not what is good for the society, actually. They should just move on. Alhamdulillah, in Singapore, we've got the Hanafis, we have got the Shafi'is, and we live together, and we don't consider one wrong than the other. We consider all the mazhabs as right. There are different opinions. It's just that we prefer to be linked to one mazhab so that it's easier for us. If you go around shopping for rulings from different mazhab, you won't even really know what are the rulings of the mazhab. So it's good that we concentrate on learning the rulings of Imam Shafi'i. Imam Shafi'i is a great scholar, is is a pious person. Imam Hanbali is a pious person. Ahmad Hanbal, all of them are pious people, and they have their own opinions, right? So we just follow one of them, choose one of them. They all follow hadith and Quran, hadith and Quran. The psychology of the then doctors of religion is best illustrated by the resentment shown by the ulama belonging to the Shafi'i school on the appointment of the chief qazis of other juristic schools, in addition to a Shafi'i state jurist by Sultan al-Malik al-Zahir Baibars. All right, we heard of Malik Zahir Baibars. It seems that the king does not only choose a Shafi'i, but choose others, right, to be qadi from the other schools. So they were not very happy about that. These theologians were indignant that in a country where only a Shafi'i doctor of law held that office, dignitaries of equal rank should be appointed from amongst the followers of their juristic school as well. So they find it wrong, right? Everybody should be Shafi'i, and they're not happy that they've got Malikis and they've got all other denominations of the juristic schools. When the rule of Baibars' progeny over Egypt came to an end, and a few years after this incident, it was construed by certain Shafi'i ulama as a divine punishment for the Baibars' action. So again, they come up with opinions and they come up with judgments that, oh, this the Baibars family was overtaken by some other dynasty, right? Because they didn't choose all Shafi'i, so it's Allah's punishment. Not really a very good way of looking at it, because nobody knows what happens and whether Allah is a punishment on Allah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not for us to say that Allah is punishing you because you did this. We don't really know, and it is not for us to say that Allah is punishing people. Allah could be a test, right? As mentioned, things don't do well, or things are different or difficult in your life, right? It could be a test, might not be a punishment after all. Can be sometimes be a punishment. It's up to you to decide whether it is a punishment or not, but not for the masses to look at you and decide that it is a punishment for you, because the masses do not know the reality of your state. Narrow-mindedness and rigidness were not limited to the legis alone, for the fixity of the theological philosophy had restricted it perhaps to a far greater extent to canalize ideas. All right, so here what they're saying is that, we've got one group here with the four juristic schools, right, arguing against each other, not happy with each other, and finding faults with each other. But this is not limited to them alone. The one that gave legis will be the one who will find laws and things like that. But there's a theological philosophy that means this is with those people of thinking, talking about God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Theology is a study of God. But philosophy is being attached to it, and that makes it rather worrying, because as we know, philosophy can be detrimental to theology. All right, anyway, they have, so there's this problem again of theology and philosophy, and having restricted it, they have in a greater extent canalized. Canalized means they have categorized, they have fixed, they have put it as a law of their ideas. The followers of the four schools of Orthodox Islam acknowledged each other's validity. They met, conversed, and had cordial relations among them. But it was impossible to see a similar tolerance between the Ash'arites and Hanbalites. Right, the Ash'arites, we have heard of Ash'ari. These are the theological schools. For us, we are Ash'aris. Right, the Hanbalites, they are following Imam Hanbal, and they don't seem to agree with each other. Whereas the legis debated simply about the correctness of their own interpretation, the disputation between the scholasticians was more often meant to prove that the other side had lapsed from faith. Right. So when the theologians are concerned, right, they are arguing, they are actually trying to prove that their opponent is out of the faith. That means they're wrong aqidah. That's what it is. A wrong aqidah. That means out of faith, not Muslim even. So the cradle fixity of the dialecticians, as distinct from the theological rigidity, stimulated by a flair for logical disputation, had made these polemic wranglings a popular intellectual pursuit. And you have then the dialecticians, those who believe that everything could be explained, and there's the rational thinking and things like that. All right, so all these things stimulated a flair. Also, we have this great desire to logically dispute about things, right? And so it becomes an intellectual. So these are the states, almost the same, right? Conditions, maybe 400 years ago, right? 200 years after Rasulullah's high hijrah, and all these ideas have been coming in, and creates lots of unhappiness and arguments and disputes among the Muslim community. The grandees and the nobles, the learned and the laity all took a keen interest in these verbal engagements. We saw that Imam Ghazali earlier on, right, had tried to stop all this this wranglings and this disputation, because it is not something which benefit the human, the Muslim soul, right? So we need to improve on our soul. That's why Imam Ghazali left the world of argumentation and went to search for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to purify his heart and to understand the real sciences of the religion. As already stated earlier, mysticism seems to have captured the heart and soul of a great majority. So that's Sufism now coming in there, right? People are amazed by it, captured by it. The Sufistic thought had absorbed numerous un-Islamic and foreign ideas, while most of the Sufis, illiterate and profane, were spreading infidelity and indifference to teachings of Islam. So again, as mentioned, not all Sufis are wrong, right? There were infiltrations, as we know, Imam Ghazali actually, when he went to Halwa, he actually realized that the Sufistic ideas, right, at that time, of course, in line with the teachings of Rasulullah SAW, are the ones that would allow you to purify your hearts. People would also consider Rumi as a Sufi because he is inclined at self-purification. Most of the Sufis of earlier age were those who are inclined to self-purification and improvement of their akhlaq. But then, as the Sufi move on, the idea of purification moves on and meet up with many other religions and ideas, and so they take in all these ideas, and they come up with very strange concepts about life, about God, and about reaching God and things like that. So there are those who are really misled by certain concepts which do not which are not in line with the teachings of Rasulullah SAW. So a section of the philosophers is busy, on the other hand, in spreading its own agnostic ideas, of often overtly and at times covertly, completely disregarding the prophetic teaching. So this is agnostic. Agnostics are those people who believe in God but are not interested in following the rules that are laid down by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are those people, they exist all the time, and they consider themselves as good. Oh, we are believers in God, we are good people, so it's fine. They will not pray 5 times a day. So they are not really true Muslims in some sense, or they believe in God, yeah, but they might not take the teachings of Rasulullah. So it's whether they state Allah knows best, right? But definitely they are not following the ways of Rasulullah, which is not really a proper good state. There were others too who wanted to reconcile religion with philosophy, but they assumed the superiority of reason over faith. So that's where the difference is between religion and philosophy, is that philosophy use their intellect to understand God, which is of course not possible, right? And Islam, the Quran has presented Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us to show us His greatness, His power, His generosity, His forbearance, and all these things. We do that, right, in understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they have confounded people a lot. Both these groups were, however, fossilized followers of Aristotle and Plato. They held the two in the highest esteem as fount of all wisdom, and their theories as inviolate. immutable. So as we see here, Aristotle and Plato, these are Greek philosophies, and we do know from the time of Imam Ghazali, Greek philosophy has entered Islam when Muslims are exposed to it, and they sort of fantasize with the ideas of Aristotle and Plato, and somehow try to explain certain Islamic concepts using ideas of Aristotle and Plato, which of course is not really very good. As mentioned, Imam Ghazali's books on philosophy, right, to explain the reality of philosophy and why it cannot be held by Muslims. This was then the political, social, ethical, and intellectual atmosphere obtaining at the time in which Ibn Taymiyyah was brought up, and wherein he rose to give a call for all-around reform and regeneration of the Muslim world. So this is a background on the state of the people, but of course, not everybody is into this, into argumentations on juristic laws, argumentations on theological and philosophical laws, mysticism, right, and philosophers and ideas and agnosticisms and everything. Right, there are always a group of people who would be there following the ways of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah preserves them, preserves the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All right, we go on to the early life, birth and childhood of Ibn Taymiyyah. Born on Monday, the 10th of Rabiul Awal, 661 years after Hijrah, Ahmad Taqiyuddin Ibn Taymiyyah came of a reputed family of theologians belonging to Haran near Edessa, Roha in northern Iraq. So that's where he was born. His original name was Ahmad Taqiyuddin, but his family is Ibn Taymiyyah. His father, Shahabuddin Abdul Halim Ibn Taymiyyah, 682, he died in 682, right, was the pulpiter of the great Umayyad Mosque and a professor of traditions in Darul Hadith as-Sakuriya of Damascus. So that is the father, also a very well-known theologian, right, and Muhaddithin, also professor of traditions. All right, so his family is of those reputed family. Then, likewise, his grandfather, Abul Barakat Majduddin Ibn Taymiyyah, was a renowned teacher of Hanbalite school and a man of letters whose Manqatil Mantaqi'ul Akhbar, classifying all the traditions, serving as a source of legislation, is still had as a work of great erudition. So that is his grandfather, right? He is a jurist. He is a jurist, right? He's a faqih, ulama, and also a hadith ulama. This was a time when the entire world of Islam was timorously trembling with fear under the terrible blows dealt with by the barbaric Tatar hordes. But the lands of Iraq and Jazeera were at the moment special targets of their horrid deprivation. So yeah, this is the moment we talked about the Tatars before and how they attacked, how they destroyed and everything. So this was the time when he was born. Ibn Taymiyyah was 7 years old when the Tatars mounted an attack on Haran. So Haran is north of Iraq. Fearful of massacres, rapines, conflagrations, and above all the indignities which were worse than death, the family of Ibn Taymiyyah left Haran along with a terror-smitten multitude to seek asylum in some other Muslim country. So again, we see here hordes of refugees. They were refugees, right, because they ran away from their own country, right, to a safer place because they are being molested, they are being massacred, they are being abused and humiliated. So they ran. There was no question of proceeding to Iraq, which had already fallen to the Tatar arms. So that definitely the Tatars are now conquering Iraq, in fact, they destroyed much of Baghdad. They therefore to bend their steps to Damascus, which was a comparatively safer place, ruled by the powerful Mamluks of Egypt, leaving behind their entire belongings. Right, so we heard of the Mamluks, so that's why it's important for us to actually look in history and to consider the background situation of during the time of Ibn Taymiyyah. So Damascus, of course, is up north, Syria, and they are under the Muslim Mamluks, so feel much safer. So as usual, these refugees will leave their entire belongings. Ibn Taymiyyah's family chose to take away with them only the valuable treasure of books they had, but with no beast of burden being available to pull the carts, they had themselves to perform that job, which means that they carried their books. Right, they did not take anything but books because they are people of the book. I mean, so people who love books, who people of knowledge, right? So they carried the books with them because they had no carts, no donkeys, and such. Confusion and disorder prevailed everywhere, while the fugitives, filled with grief and terror, were always fearful of being overtaken by the Tatar cavalry. So they were pursued, they were afraid to be overtaken, right? Things were in disarray and disorder. Once the Tatar column was near at hand, the wheels of the cart got stuck up. The members of the Ibn Taymiyyah's family fell prostrate on the ground and fervently beseeched Allah to save them from the impending calamity. So we can see them here imagining that they were all running away from the north of Iraq going to Syria, and while they are moving, they had carts to carry their books, but they had no animals, so they had to pull their carts on their own, and then the carts stuck, and the army was actually coming in on them, so they just dua and dua and dua. At last, the cart moved on and the caravan got ahead safely on its way. So Allah accepted their dua and they were safe. In Damascus, the news of the arrival of this illustrious family soon spread in Damascus. People, especially the educated, were aware of the scholarly achievements of Majiduddin ibn Taymiyyah and Abdul Halim ibn Taymiyyah. This is the grandfather and the father. The latter, Ibn Taymiyyah's father, was invited to begin discourses on hadith in the Great Umayyad Mosque and the Darul Hadith Korea, which were attended by a large number of students and scholars. So the father had a good post, right, in Damascus. Prodigious memory. Ibn Taymiyyah's family was known for its strong retentive memory. His father and grandfather both had an eidetic memory, but the prodigious treasure house of the mind endowed to Ibn Taymiyyah surpassed even his forefathers. He says that the father and grandfather really, really great memories, but Taymiyyah has the best. When he was still a child, the feats of his marvelous memory used to leave the people lost in amazement. An eyewitness account of his amazing memory preserved in Al-Uqud al-Duriyah runs as follows. Once a scholar of Halib is Aleppo in North Syria, who had come to Damascus, heard of a prodigious child, Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah, renowned for his marvelous retentive power. Coming to a tailor's shop near Ahmad's house, he sat down there to wait for the child. After a short while, a tailor pointed out the boy sought by him. So we have this man who had heard of this great boy, with this boy who has a very strong memory. So the man wants to test the boy. So he went over. Because from Halab to Damascus is quite a distance. But he wants to see for himself this boy. He summoned the boy and asked him to wipe off his tablet so that he could write on it. The boy handed over the clean tablet to the scholar, who wrote 11 or 13 traditions on it, and then asked the boy to read them once carefully. Now the scholar took back the tablet and asked the boy to repeat what he had read. The boy repeated them all without a single mistake. So that's a kind of great memory they had, very strong memory. The scholar got the tablet wiped off again and wrote thereon a few transmitting chains of the traditions. Transmitting chains means this from this one to this one to this one to this one to Rasulullah. So the names of the people out there. The boy went through this and again repeated the whole thing. Astonished at the feat of the boy's memory, he remarked, if Allah wills him to live, he would be a genius that appear in the whole world. So that was how the man assessed the great intelligence of this boy and his very strong memory. There are numerous examples of Ibn Taymiyyah's amazing feats of memory which lend support to the veracity of this story. In fact, the intellectual marvels of strong retentive power possessed by the traditionists and other doctors of religion, recorded by historians and the authority of unimpeachable witnesses, shows that the story narrated about Ibn Taymiyyah is not at all exaggerated. Is the reality of our scholars. They are very, very strong. We have no doubt about that. To be able to memorize 100,000 hadiths. Most of the imams have memorized 100,000 hadiths, and the Quran at the same time. The books, lots of books. Memorize books. After books is not impossible, but they are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them, right, to hold on to the flag of Islam with their knowledge that they have. Special memory that Allah has blessed them. All right, so that's a short look at the beginning part of the life of Ibn Taymiyyah. We continue with Al-Wafi in the Athara commentary of the 40 Nawawiyah, Sheikh Mustafa Deep Al-Bugha and Sheikh Muhyiddin Mistu, translated by Mahdi Lok. May Allah preserve them and have mercy on all of them. All right, hadith 10. At-tayyibul halal syaratul qabul. We did hadith 10, which means the good and the halal good is a condition for acceptance. And Abi, not this one. Look at the original one. Right? Yeah, sorry. Correct. This is a hadith of Rasulullah. An Abi Hurairah qala Rasulullah inna Allah tayyib. Surely Allah, qala Rasulullah SAW. Rasulullah said, surely Allah is good. La yaqbalu illa tayyiba. Not he except the good. Except good. Wa inna Allah amara al-mu'minina bima amara bihil mursalin. And surely Allah, he commanded the believers as with what? He commanded the messengers. Faqala ta'ala ya ayyuhar rusul. And said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, O messengers, kulu eat minat tayyibat of the good. Wa'malu salihah, and do good. وقال تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا, O you who believe, كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم, eat of the good of whatever we have provided you. ثم ذكر الرجل يطيل السفر أشعث أغبر يمد يديه إلى السماء. Then he recalled a man who had traveled far and he's disheveled with dust and everything, and he raised his hand to the sky, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, he says, wa mat'amuhu haram, and his food is haram, wa mashrabuhu haram, and his drink is haram, wa malabasahu haram, and his clothing is haram, wa ghudhi bil haram. Right, and he did haram for anna yustajabu lahu rawahu, and how can he be accepted of him? Rawahul Muslim, as riwayat by Muslim. All right, so the hadith then recap, the pure and unlawful is a condition for acceptance. Rasulullah SAW told us that Allah is pure and accepts pure. We must eat pure and halal food. Rasulullah SAW then mentioned a dusty man back from a journey with his hands raised and calling on his Rabb. His food, drink, clothing is unlawful. How can Allah respond to his call? So that's what the hadith is all about that we had last lesson, talking about purity, about good food, about having halal food. Right? So the importance of the hadith concerns consuming the lawful, avoiding the unlawful. Income must be pure, that all will be pure. Charity must be from pure income. Allah loves good works and virtuous deeds. The pure ones die in a good state. So a believer is pure in heart. Limbs will be tongue, eyes, or of course as limbs in the Arabic language. Nose, everything are pure, and they do pure, and they have pure actions. Du'as only accepted with lawful food. So you must have lawful food. Lawful food does not mean halal as per se, but bought by halal income. Lack of acceptance could be due to lack of validity. So sometimes when we talk about lack of, Allah does not accept certain actions because it does not, it doesn't conform to the various rulings that should be followed. Like for example, to pray without wudu will not be accepted because it doesn't have, it's not valid in the sense that you praying without wudu is not a valid thing. You can get rid of unlawful by giving as charity. We had a discussion on that, right? Unlawful things like riba or things which belongs to others, and things which are money which we are not sure of, like for example, we did not mention the example of Imam Ahmad, whose son was working with the government, and he had issues with the government at that time because the government was forcing people to give taxes unfairly, and so he would not want to get involved the money of the government. And when the son gave him bread brought from his income, he actually took the bread and threw the bread into the river where Euphrates. And then he asked his people, how long does a fish in the river stay? I mean, how long was the lifespan of the fish in the river? And they told him to 3 months. And for 3 months, he doesn't eat the fish from the river. That's being very careful about haram and halal food. Reasons for supplications being answered: traveling a long distance, to be worn out in terms of one's clothes and appearance, to be really exhausted, tired, right? And you are so dusty because of your travel, stretching one's hands towards the sky, to ask Allah earnestly, repeating, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. And that is the 4 reasons why, how don't ask can be accepted. To understand that supplication is an ibadah. All right, and so that is the end of our 10th hadith, a reflection on our 10th hadith. 11th hadith, al-akhadhu bil-yaqeen, right? The taking of certainty, wal bu'du, and the leaving of an-shubuhat, of the doubtful ones. Shubuhat, doubtful ones. Shubhat comes from the word shubhat, actually means with resemblance of doubt, with resemblance of not good things. And Abi Muhammad al-Hasan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, Sibti Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This is from Muhammad al-Hasan, son of Ali, son of Abi Talib. وريحانته sallallahu alayhi wasallam qala, he remembered what his grandfather said, hafidhtu min Rasulillah, and he says not Rasulullah, he says the son Hassan, son of Muhammad, son al-Hassan, right? He says that he preserved from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, da ma yaribuka, leave what doubts you, ila ma la yaribuka, to what does not doubt you. Wa rawahu Tirmidhi wa Nasa'i wa qala Tirmidhi hadithu Hasan sahih. So it's from narrated from Tirmidhi and Nasa'i, and it's a Hasan. So we have the Arabic ones, so that we have the blessings of reciting exactly the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Translated: sticking to certainty and staying away from doubtful matters. So we are translating. Just now we had a sort of following the hadith itself. Right now, it is an authority of Abu Muhammad al-Hasan bin Ali. So Abu Muhammad al-Hasan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. So this is Sayyidina Hassan. He is the father of Muhammad. He has a son named Muhammad Hassan. Sayyidina Hassan. Abu Muhammad al-Hassan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, the grandchild of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his offspring. And that he said, I memorized this from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Leave that which you doubt for that which does not give you doubt. Related by At-Tirmidhi and An-Nasa'i, and At-Tirmidhi said it is a good authentic hadith. At-Tirmidhi related it in the book of describing the standing, the softening of hearts, and scrupulousness, chapter on tying a camel and relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is from Tirmidhi, 2520, and he has additional words which says, for indeed truthfulness is tranquility and lying is doubt. So in his hadith, there is a little bit more addition to it, in which thing which is truthful, you will feel at ease. So something which is for sure, yaqeen, then you'll feel at ease, while the thing which is not good, right, lying is doubt. So when you lie, you have this unhappiness and doubts in you. When you are truthful, then you are at peace. And Nasa'i has related it in the book of drinks, a chapter on encouraging the abandonment of doubtful matters. So Nasa'i classified it into the books of drinks. And in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, it is in number 1723. And Sheikh Ahmad Shakir says that it's a chain of transmission is authentic. So this is about the hadith and how many of them actually, of the scholars of hadith here, we have Tirmidhi, we've got Nasa'i, we've got Imam Ahmad, right? And a commentary from Ahmad Shakir. So all these are scholars for us to get to know. All right, and this hadith is now, what we are doing right now is reciting this hadith, which is chosen by Imam Nawawi as the 40 critical hadiths that we should live by. Importance of this hadith is another example of comprehensive speech and one of the profound prophetic wisdom. Right, so we can see the hadith is a very short hadith, right? If it is directly what we have from Imam Nawawi is just that part in which Imam Hassan said that Rasulullah SAW said, leave what is doubtful for what is certain. That's it. That's the hadith. So we have this very short hadith. We call it comprehensive speech because the hadith is so short, but the meaning is deep. That's what it means. So this is about the wisdom. It shows the profound wisdom of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In just a few words, it has laid down an immense foundation of our Islam, which is to leave doubtful matters and stick to what is certainly lawful. So this is a foundation that the basis of our religion is not to get involved with anything that is doubtful and be attached to what is sure and certain. So that's what it is. So that is why at the end of his commentary on this hadith, Ibn Hajar al-Haytami said this hadith is an immense foundation of the religion, right, as well as source of scrupulousness around which the people of taqwa revolve, and those who are saved from doubts and illusions that block the light of certainty. So he considers this, Ibn Hajar has mentioned that this hadith is the great foundation of religion. It is the basis, is the core of the religion, because it is also a source of scrupulousness. Scrupulousness in Arabic is called wara'. Wara' means very careful in making sure that everything that you do is right. So even the slightest doubt around it, so because it talks about doubt and leaving doubt. So this is the people of wara'. If there is a doubt in it, then they would leave doubt. For example, if we talk about smoking, right? Smoking, initially the ulama comes around and said that smoking is makruh because of the bad smell that comes from the smoke. But in later years, the ulama has mentioned that it is haram, right? So there is this, some still doubt it is haram, it's still makruh, right? And so they still smoke, but those who are scrupulous, very careful, they would prefer not to be involved with smoking. And also scholars have said whatever is makruh, we have done this before, whatever is makruh, yes, if you do it, it is not sinful, but it is something very, very frowned upon by Rasulullah SAW. So if you desire to be of the category of Muslims who are very concerned with obedience to Rasulullah SAW, seeking pleasure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would try your very best to avoid makruh as much as possible and not say, Allah, it's makruh only, no haram, no, and that kind of excuse that people have to move into makruh conditions. All right, so the people of scrupulousness, right, they have strong, the taqwa, you would say, much higher stage. And those who are safe from doubts and illusions that block the light of certainty. They're really worried, right, things that would cause the light of certainty to be blocked from them by being involved with things which are doubtful and something that, you know, maybe are illusions. Explain the words of the hadith, the word da' ma yaribuka. So da' is to leave whatever doubt you. Leave dubious matters that give you doubt, and the command is one of recommendation. So that means it is recommended that you should leave anything that is doubtful. Ila ma la yaribuka. Raib is doubtful. What is what does not doubt you. So for that which does not give you doubt, such as that which is clearly lawful, certainly halal, I'll take it. Doubts concerning his halalness, I prefer not to take it. Like for example, fixed interest, and there are differences of opinions. There are opinions which say it's okay, some say no, it's not okay. So I prefer to be on the safer side. I will not take it as it is. All right. So that is called scrupulousness. Legal matters and other guidance from the hadith. Leaving doubtful matters. So that's the main core of the hadith, is to leave doubtful matters. Leaving doubtful matters in worship, transactions, marriage, and divorce, and all other kinds of rulings, and sticking to the lawful in all matters leads the Muslim to scrupulousness. It's mentioned wara. So in prayers, things which are doubtful, in our worship, in our businesses, right? Some say this what multimedia marketing, right? Is haram. Some say crypto, whatever is haram. Some say this is because in this modern world, there's so many kinds of transactions, financial tools and things like that. So if it's haram, I prefer not to get involved. Now, if there are those who say haram and there are those who say halal, I prefer not to get involved because there's doubt in it. Right? Some say haram, some say halal. All right. Marriage, right? Maybe if you, some people say, there are those who say that if you get married secretly, it's not valid, you know, and then maybe some rules on divorce. There are different of rules. So there are things which are very doubtful. So, and all other kinds of rulings, sticking to the lawful in all matters with the Muslims. So if you want to be scrupulous, have wara, then stick to the lawful and not the doubtful ones. It is also very beneficial in blocking satanic whispering, just as it benefits the Muslim in his life and the hereafter. So to stick to the lawful, right, stops the shaitan's whispers. Because when it's doubtful, you see, it's called waswas. Waswas means, as mentioned in Surah An-Nas, من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس. So the whispers of shaitan. Was are whispers. And they tell you, it's okay lah. Some is alamak, it's a little bit. Oh, come on, it's just a little bit here. You know, a little bit, or maybe 0.5% of alcohol. Doesn't really matter anyway. Well, I prefer not to. That's what it is, right? Just it benefits the Muslim in his life and hereafter, right? So that means going for that which is really halal and lawful is better than moving for this world and the next world, right? Because in this world, you will not be easily seduced by the whisperings of the shaitan. In the next world, you are safe because you do not get involved with anything that is doubtful, which might be haram. We have done that before with the hadith on the halal is clear and the haram is clear, right? And then there's the boundaries, right? Don't fall into the haram zone. All right, so be very careful. It was mentioned in the 6 hadiths that whoever guards himself against doubtful matters has secured his religion and his honor, and that which is definitely lawful does not place any doubt or suspicion in the believer's heart. So anything that is, that which is definitely lawful does not place any doubt or suspicion in the believer's heart. So anything that is definitely lawful, you do not have whisperings in your heart. You don't have suspicions in your heart. You don't doubt things, right, concerning the halalness of the thing. For example, in some communities, they actually, if you go to countries like Philippines, be very careful because they will say the chicken is okay, just say Bismillah over it, but it's not slaughtered. It's not slaughtered. And they got this idea from some opinions, right, that you just have to say Bismillah over the chicken that is unslaughtered well, and you can just become halal. Right? So be very careful of this chicken that they say halal. Preferably do not have to, you won't die if you don't eat chicken for a few days. If you are in Philippines, maybe for a month, for a week or so. Even if it's a month, no chicken is fine, no meat is fine. Just eat of the other fruits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Always remember Rasulullah only eat water and dates most of the time. Once in a while, when anyone slaughter a goat right, then they will have some meat for themselves. And meat is not something that is stable food of the Muslims. And it is said that to eat meat every day is bad for the heart, spiritually and physically. Rather, it brings tranquility and happiness to his soul. So when you are sure of what you're doing, you know it's definitely halal, then you feel tranquil and happy. As for doubtful matters, a person may be pleased with them outwardly, but if we were to reveal what is in his heart, we would find anxiety, unease, and doubt. Right? So those involved in doubtful matters, they have questions in themselves, right? But sometimes they just brush off these questions, these uncertainties, right? Whenever you have uncertainty, just leave it. But they're not able to. The cyclical punishment suffices him as an abstract loss. And the great loss and destruction is in becoming accustomed to doubtful matters and then daring to engage in the unlawful, because whoever hovers around forbidden pasturage will definitely fall into it, right? So this doubt in the heart, sometimes he is trying his very best to remove that doubt and unhappiness and that feeling of doing something wrong. So eventually you manage to remove it. So after you remove that doubt, you move into unlawful things. It's mentioned in the hadith, right, that the lawful is clear, the unlawful is clear, right? The borders, if you move around along the borders, that means you move along the doubtful areas, then you will fall into the unlawful area. So this is a great loss and destruction. It's becoming accustomed to doubtful matters. So those who continue doing things which are doubtful and then eventually would dare to engage in unlawful, because whoever hovers around forbidden pasturage will definitely fall into it. That means will do the haram. All right, statements on the first three generations regarding leaving doubt for the certainty of scrupulousness. Our righteous predecessors from the first three generations have clear statements and actions regarding adhering to what is purely lawful, staying away from doubtful matters, and adorning oneself with scrupulousness. First is to take what is pure, leave what is doubtful, not haram, but doubtful, and to beautify yourself with wara. Wara is to be very careful with what you do and take. Here are some examples of the statements. Abu Zar al-Ghifari said, this is one of the very scrupulous Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu anhu, said, the perfection of taqwa is in leaving some of the lawful for the fear that it might be unlawful. So that is taqwa. Perfection, not that is taqwa, but that is the perfection of taqwa, is to leave the lawful for fear that it might be unlawful. That means when you have doubt in the lawful, you leave it. Abu Abdurrahman al-Amari al-Zahid said, if a slave is careful, he leaves that which gives him doubt for that which does not give him doubt. So that's being very careful. That's having wara, to leave what is doubtful and to take what without that has no doubt. Al-Fudail ibn Ayyad, one of the awliya Allah, said, people claim that scrupulousness is difficult. So they are saying that to have wara is difficult. No two matters have been presented to me except that I choose the more difficult of them. So he's actually doing the more difficult of them, right? That means he is scrupulous. Leave what gives you doubt for what does not give you doubt. So that means be careful. Whatever is doubtful, leave it. Hassan ibn Abi Sinan said, nothing is easier than scrupulousness. If some things give you doubt, leave it. So he finds it easy. He says to be wara, it is easy. As long as you are doubting it, leave it. That's it. Don't have to think about it. As for their actions, Yazid bin ibn Zari turned down 50,000 set aside as his inheritance and did not take it. So he's worried that this money is not halal. So he 50,000 and he just didn't want to take it. His father oversaw business on behalf of the rulers while Yazid worked as a diver and lived off that until he died. So he had inheritance from his father, and the father actually was involved with the rulers, who most probable chances of Yazid seeing them as corrupt and not having halal income is very high. So he gave up that 50,000 set aside as his inheritance. and did not take it. 2,000, wallahu alam, what is the denomination then? Anyway, it's a lot of money. Al-Miswar ibn Mahrama bought a huge amount of food. Then he saw some clouds in the autumn and disliked it. He said, do I not see that I dislike what benefits the Muslims? Then swore that he would not profit from it all. So somehow this man, he wanted to sell some food, but somehow he had some kind of feeling about the clouds, and then he realized that what he's feeling is not a good feeling, and so he swore that he would not take profit from the food that he's going to sell, because he wants it to benefit all. Then he told Umar ibn Khattab, and Umar said to him, radiallahu anhu, may Allah reward you with goodness. Umar see it as a good gesture on the part of Al-Miswar. Was said to Ibrahim ibn Adham, this is another awliya Allah, do you not drink the water of Zamzam? So somebody asked Ibrahim ibn Adham whether how come he doesn't drink the water of Zamzam? He replied, if I had the bucket, I would, indicating that the bucket was from the ruler's wealth and was therefore doubtful. So that's as far as they go in doubting things, because they are using a cup, right? In Masjid al-Haram, they put cups, right, for you to drink your Zamzam. But where he's concerned, they call it a bucket. Is the bucket, maybe they get water from the well itself in the olden days. So you use a pail kind of a bucket kind to get water. So he says, because the bucket is from the money of the king, and I doubt how the king gains his money, that is why I'm not drinking. If I had my own bucket, I would have drank it. So he says, so this is or being very careful about even the utensils that you use, which might be have some maybe it's not halal, bought with halal money. Someone might say these statements and actions are exaggerated examples of scrupulousness, saying that possibly all these examples that are given a bit too strict, too exaggerated about scrupulousness. We say that the Ummah needs a righteous model in every age, an Islamic exemplar that can be followed, whether a ruler or a scholar, so that they can stay within the bounds of the lawful and pure and do without the unlawful and filthy. So he's counteracting these people who consider these ways of doing things exaggerated, that there's a need, right, among the Muslims of people who are really careful, only careful about being the lawful and the pure, because they know Allah is pure and Allah does not like the impure. So they're very careful about what they do, and they follow through the hadith of Rasulullah. And these are the strong ones, people with strong souls, strong Islamic adherence, and they are the ones who actually keep the world going with their du'as, inshallah. If the life of this ummah did not have the likes of these statements and actions showing such restraint concerning doubtful matters, people would plunge to the doubtful and the unlawful and indulge in it freely with astonishing insolence, because they would have lost that wise, sincerely advising guide, and they would miss that exemplar and model. So it's justifying why his claims are valid, that it is very important to have such groups of people so that others do not fall into doubtful and unlawful things and become rudely, arrogantly disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are into that state because they do not have groups of people who are wise and sincere. Right, these are great examples and models to follow and to look up to if you can't really emulate them. Doubt contradicting certainty. When doubt contradicts certainty, we take certainty and give it precedence, and we avoid doubt. As doubt contradicts certainty, so it's against certainty, so we go for the certainty. This meaning is found in the second of the legal maxims, that all the rulings of the revealed law have determined the text of which is certainty is not removed by doubt. Certainty is not removed by doubt. Right? To be certain, a doubt cannot remove being certain. Once you have doubt, you won't be certain. For example, Someone who makes wudu and then doubts as to whether he has nullified it is still considered to be the sin of wudu. That means you are sure you had wudu, right? But you're not sure whether you have done anything wrong. I mean, you have nullified your wudu. Maybe you're not sure. Remember, did I touch anyone? Any mahram, non-mahram? Did I pass wind? Did I go to the toilet? I forget. Can't remember. So that doubt, right, does not remove what is certain. What is certain is that you took your wudu. So it means certainty is not removed by doubt. So what is certain, but you have doubt about the whether you have, like for example, maybe. So this example, you understand it? That means wudu, right? He has wudu. For sure, he knew he had wudu. But after an hour or so, he wants to pray Zuhur. Batal or not? Did I invalidate my wudu or not? Can't remember whether I did anything wrong or not. So, okay. So, what is certain is that you have wudu. So, that's fine. So, just continue with your wudu. This goes back to a Muslim has related from Rasulullah in which he said, if one of you felt something in his stomach and is not sure whether he released it or not, he should not leave the masjid unless he hears a sound or notices a smell. All right. So you felt maybe you want to go toilet or but you don't hear any sound, you don't smell anything, then forget it. You're fine. You have not released anything. Your wudu is still. Okay, we'll take a break here. We continue with Noman Alihan.
We have an example. I'm going to try to give you an example. Stay with me. Try to focus on this example. Inshallah, the concept will become clear. I want you to pretend that I am your mathematics teacher and you are 10 years old in school and I'm your mathematics teacher and I'm teaching you multiplication today. And I start teaching you multiplication. And then you raise your hand and you say, which color is better, blue or orange? But you're a math teacher, right? You should tell me. I said, can you focus on what I'm teaching you? Then another student raises their hand and says, I want to know about addition. No, we're studying multiplication right now. No, but I want to know about addition. Can you tell me about addition? Then another one raises their hand and says, hey, so I have a question about calculus. No, you're in third grade. Why are you asking about calculus? Can we focus on what we're doing here? What happens, the teacher's job is to take the minds of his students and get them away from the colors and from addition and from calculus, bring them back to this lesson right now, which is what? Multiplication. Focus on this. Focus on this. So this was a children's example. Let me take you to an adult example. Imagine you're in a university. Your parents pay a lot of money so you can get into this school. And finally, you're sitting in the class. And this is also, maybe it's an accounting class or a math class. And after you sit in this class, it's very hard to get in this school. Everybody comes with their notebook. They want to write everything down, everything the professor says. They want to focus on it and pay attention to it. You raise your hand in your accounting class and you say, so blue or orange, which color is better? And the professor looks at you like, why did you come here? This is not what we do here. Why are you insulting this education? Go ask your friend this question. You didn't come to me for this purpose. You understand? You're not only insulting your teacher, you're insulting the other students. You're insulting the education, and you're insulting your parents who paid for your education. You understand this issue? Now watch this. Allah gave us a Quran. He gave us a messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes or no? He gave us these things. And he says about his surahs, لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ, so they think deeply about his ayat. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, so you can think. When he says so you can think, he is making us focus on the things that he's talking about, yes? So what do we do? And we come to this. So what does the Quran say about this? And what does the Quran say about that? I have a question about this. I have a question about that. And you have all these other questions. And Allah is telling you and me, let go. Focus on what I'm giving you. Here's a surah. Here's an ayah. Here's revelation. Think about this. And when you think about this, then you will ask the right kinds of questions because now your thoughts have a direction. But what's happened with a lot of Muslims is now you'll notice Muslims are starting to have doubt in Islam. And you will notice one thing that is in common among all of them. Their questions never come from studying the Quran. Their questions always come from outside, from some YouTube video here, some TikTok over there, some article over here, something they heard over here, they were watching the news, they were watching a movie, they have these questions, and then they say, Islam better give me an answer to all of my questions. It better answer curiosity A, B, C, D, and E. And if it doesn't have my answers, then this is not the right religion for me. Because now it's supposed to be like Google. When you ask Google something, it answers you immediately no matter what you ask. It has some answer for you. So Islam should be able to answer every question I have. This, what does it do? Obviously, Allah will not waste time answering your useless questions because you're not respecting what Allah is giving you. You're not giving time to that. You're not focusing on that. And so as a result, now I only have 2 minutes left. So I'll tell you what Allah shows us. He says, when you keep asking these kinds of questions, it starts taking away your iman. With every question, your iman is being taken away. And slowly, 1% of iman got replaced with, oh, I guess Islam doesn't have this answer. Then the next one, Islam's not that impressive. And you're becoming ungrateful for Islam. One of the words for being ungrateful is kufr. Kufr is not just disbelief. Kufr is also kufran al-ni'mah. It means to be ungrateful. So Allah says, وَمَنْ يَتَبَدَّلِ الْكُفْرَ بِالْإِيمَانِ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. Are you going to ask questions like Musa was asked before? Because whoever replaces kufr with iman, meaning they took their iman, got rid of it, put kufr there instead, then they've gone off on the wrong path. That's why they are asking these wrong kinds of questions. This is a crisis because now, because of the devices that we have, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube Shorts, new idea, constantly being bombed with new ideas. And with every new idea, you have different kinds of questions. And then you say, Islam doesn't have the answer. There's so many different ideas and Islam has no direction, no answer. Now, this is the last thing I'll share with you. I'd like you to take this as the lesson. We all have questions. We're human beings. You can't help it. There's no way you can stop your mind from having questions. But try this for me. Take all of your questions and you take a shelf in your brain and you put them in the shelf and you lock the shelf. Close it. Hold your questions. Don't think about them all the time. Let them go. And then start studying the Quran. Study the Fatiha, study Baqarah, study Ali Imran. Take time, even if it's little, 30 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, but study Allah's book and think about what Allah is saying. Think about what Allah, don't think about it from the point of view of your question. I'm looking for the answer to my question. Let me see if I find it. No. Your questions are on pause. They're in the fridge. Let them get cold. Your focus is on what Allah is saying. And you know what's going to happen? So many of your questions will start disappearing because you'll realize those questions were pointless. There was no purpose to them. When Musa alayhi salam was asked what color cow, there was no point to that question. When he was asked, is it a young cow or an old cow, there was no point to that question. There was no reason to ask that question. When the Quraysh said the Prophet, isn't he a poet? Isn't he a magician? Isn't he? They asked all these questions. Allah didn't answer any of those questions. They say this, leave them alone. They say this, leave them alone. There are so many places in the Quran where people ask a question, Allah doesn't even answer it. When we are broken, our bones are broken in the grave and we turn into dust and decay, we're going to be made a new creation all over again? I'm going to be brought back to life? How? This is a question they asked. Allah said, قُلْ كُونُوا حِجَارَةً أَوْ حَدِيدًا. Go turn into metal. Go turn into a stone. I'll bring you. That's not an answer. That's like, this is a stupid question. It doesn't deserve an answer. So what does Allah do when you study the Quran? He guides your questions. Guidance does not come from answers. Guidance comes from asking the right questions. And that's the lesson that's being taught in this ayah. So in this short time, my hope is that as you put those questions on the side and you start asking Allah directly what He's talking about, focus on the lesson at hand, you will find that eventually you'll open that shelf and it will be empty inside. There won't be anything left. All those questions will either disappear or Allah will answer them in a way that no human being could answer them. That is the gift that Allah has given us in the Quran. That's why He keeps telling us, not أَفَلَا تَعْلَمُونَ, why don't you know? Why don't you know? Allah says, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, why don't you then think? Don't you think? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, so you can think, because questions are related directly to thought. What you think about is what you will ask about. What I think about is what I will ask about. I pray that Allah makes us people that think about the Quran. They think about the word of Allah, because that will guide our thoughts. And once our thoughts are guided, our questions are also going to be guided, and we'll be saved from making the mistake that Allah is warning about to the Muslims here in this remarkable ayah. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Quran al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I hope you guys enjoyed that video clip. My team and I have been working tirelessly to try to create as many resources for Muslims to give them first steps in understanding the Quran, all the way to the point where they can have a deep, profound understanding of the Quran. We are students of the Quran ourselves, and we want you to be students of the Quran alongside us. Join us for this journey on BayyinaTV.com, where thousands of hours of work have already been put in. And don't be intimidated, it's step by step by step, so you can make learning the Quran a part of your lifestyle. There's lots of stuff available on YouTube, but it's all over the place. If you want an organized approach to studying the Quran beginning to end for yourself, your kids, your family, and even among peers, that would be the way to go. Sign up for BayyinaTV.com.
Okay, so that's about questioning. It's very important to learn the Quran. We should be reading the Quran a lot also, as much as possible. If you can't read, at least go through the Quran, with a reciter, and go through the meaning also, inshallah. All right, we continue on with our hadith. Refraining from doubtful matters is for the one whose affairs are upright. When we call for scrutiny concerning doubtful matters and abstention from them, we are only calling on those whom all their affairs are upright and their actions resemble one another in taqwa and scrupulousness. So he's saying that this topic on asking people to avoid doubtful, right, will only go well with those who are already upright, who try their very best to avoid anything that's wrong. That's taqwa. Taqwa comes from the root word wiqaya, which means to be on guard. So you be on guard on whatever that comes your way. If there is any doubt in it, we just leave it. So that's being scrupulous, having wara. As for those who plunge into clearly unlawful matters and then want to be scrupulous about the intricate matters of that which is doubtful, this scrupulousness of theirs will be burdensome and difficult. So he's saying that when you are okay with doing unlawful things, and then after that you want to be very careful about things which are doubtful, that will become burdensome and difficult. I've got a case of a lady who burdens herself a lot with najis. She feels that a little bit of water, she would be washing herself after she passed motion, and she feels that the water splashes on her head, her body, and that's the najis on her head and her body. So this one makes it very, very difficult for her. And because of that, she doesn't want to pray. So you can see she's very, very careful, trying to be so supposedly wara about things which are not at all doubtful. Right? I mean, she doubts. She would say, when she sent her cat to a vet, and then the vet touches the dog, and then touches the cat, and then now she bring the cat back. So she has a dog already on her. So Islam I told her, Islam, Allah SWT is very merciful. These are things you don't see, so you just move on and don't take it as that. All kinds of things trouble her. Eventually, she doesn't pray. All right, so you see that she does something unlawful, not praying, and yet she's over careful with these things which she feels is najis, even though she doesn't see it, and it becomes burdensome for her and difficult. So we must reproach them for doing so and ask them to abstain from the clearly unlawful first, right? So that's the reality of some people. We must, you don't do all these things, be very careful about very small things, and yet the important things you just can't be bothered. This is because Ibn Umar asked by the people of Iraq about the blood of a gnat. Gnat is like a mosquito. They say like, oh, I was praying and then there's a mosquito and I hit the mosquito, got blood already. So how najis or not? So they asked about the blood of a gnat and they killed Al-Hussein. So he's saying that these are the people who killed Sayyidina Hussein, and yet they want to talk about the blood of a gnat, which has some doubts in it. So I heard Rasulullah SAW saying, there are my two offsprings in this life. That means the Hassan and Hussein are the descendants of Rasulullah SAW. And men are, this is examples of how people, they don't bother about halal haram, and yet they want to be very careful about things, I mean, supposedly to seen as scrupulous. A man asked Bishr ibn al-Harith about a man who has a wife and his mother told him to divorce her. He replied, if he is dutiful to his mother in everything and nothing remains from his duty to her other than divorcing his wife, he should do so. He's saying that, all right, look at this man. He is a filial son who obeys everything the mother asks him to do. So you have done everything possible to obey the mother, and then the only other thing is to divorce his wife, then he should divorce his wife. All right? If he is dutiful to her by divorcing his wife, and then after that he stand up and hits his mother, he should not. So what it means that this man here, all right, okay, my mother said I must divorce my wife. Okay, I divorce my wife. But then he himself is rude to his mother. He goes up and stand and beats the mother up. Then he should not divorce his wife, because he is one who does. So there is doubt in whether he should divorce his wife from the insistence of his mother. But because he's a person who does not do things lawfully, in the sense that he beats his mother up also, then he should not do something which has a doubt in it and to act on it. So this is what it means, right? So he's saying that these things about leaving the doubtful and being scrupulous about things is only for those who have done everything to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is for those who have taqwa. The man asked Ahmad ibn Hanbal for permission to use his inkwell. He replied, right, this is over scrupulousness. So he says, to ask me whether you can use my ink, you're just being over scrupulousness. That means it's not necessary to be asking me, as I say. He said to someone else, neither my scrupulousness nor your scrupulousness will reach this. Right? That means we cannot attain this state of scrupulousness. Even he is scrupulous, whether you are scrupulous, he is scrupulous, right? You will not be able to reach this state. Ibn Hamad said that this art of modesty, for he would never write using one of his companions' inkwells. Right? So basically, according to this author, that what he's saying, right, is out of modesty, because he himself would never use anybody's ink without permission, because he has reached, of course, a stage where he does everything right. As mentioned about the food, that is about Imam Ahmad Hanbal. So about the food the bread that his son gave him, and it's true. That's because he's very, very scrupulous. But for others who are not as that scrupulous, it's okay, just use the ink. That's how he sees it. He was considering himself that he employed scrupulousness, and he would reproach anyone else who had not reached his level of taqwa and scrupulousness in all of their affairs. So he does not allow people to be overly careful about doubtful things, and yet they themselves are into doing haram things. So first, you must make sure you don't do the haram things. Then you move on to improving yourself in avoiding the doubtful things. Truthfulness is tranquility and lying is doubt. The Prophet ﷺ statement in At-Tirmidhi's narration. So now he is actually moving on to Tirmidhi's narration. This is not part of the Nawawi hadith that Imam Nawawi has quoted. And Imam Nawawi's quote was only about things which are doubtful, to leave it and to take whatever is certain. But in the hadith of Tirmidhi, he included another part about truthfulness and lying. He says, for indeed truthfulness is tranquility and lying is doubt. Indicates that one should seek words that are truthful and definitive. So that's it, right? So if you are telling the truth, everything is truth, but you feel at peace and you feel tranquil. But if you're always lying, and then when you lie, there is this great doubt in your heart, this unhappiness in you because you are not truthful. When someone needs an answer to a question or a fatwa for an issue, the sign of truthfulness is that one's heart is at ease. That's the sign of truthfulness. You feel at ease with the answer. The sign of lying is that one has doubts and the heart does not rest, rather it flees from it. So the heart is not happy, accepting something which is doubtful in the answer. All right. The hadith instructs us to base our rulings and our daily affairs on certainty. The lawful, the truth, and veracity are tranquility and contentment. The lawful, the false, and the lying are doubt, anxiety. So the unlawful, not the unlawful. So if it's lawful, it's true, there's credibility and veracity in it, then you will feel tranquil and content. But if it's unlawful, false, and lying, then there's doubt, anxiety, and aversion. It's the reality of our life. You need to move and live life with the truth, inshallah. All right, we continue with Surah Sabah. Last lesson, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. We continue. We did verse 24. 44 in the last lesson. One verse only. Allah does send them a book which they can read, not a warner before Rasulullah. So these people have got no way to ascertain that the book is divine, because they have never had an experience about divine books, because they don't have a divine book with them at that moment. So they have never studied a divine book, nor did they have a warner in the form of a messenger before Rasulullah SAW, as mentioned in Surah Yasin, right? They were not, nobody wants them. We talk about the beginning part of Surah Yasin, where Allah says they have not been warned for so long and they are heedless. And so they have no basis to denounce the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those before them rejected. So those before them rejected the book of Allah, and they have rejected the book of Allah. Okay, we continue. أكذب الذين من قبلهم, and denied those from before them, وما بلغوا, and not reached them, and not they reached, معشارة 1/10 ما آتيناهم, what we gave them. فكذبوا, then they denied رسلي, my messengers. وكذلك الذين من قبلهم وما بلغوا معشار ما آتيناهم فكذبوا رسلي. فكيف, then how, كان نكير, was my approval. How was my approval? When those before them rejected, and these have not yet attained 1/10 of what we gave them, but they gave the lie to my messengers, then how was the manifestation of my disapproval? All right. So Allah says they denied those before. So it is not something new that the Quraysh are denying Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Those who were before the Quraysh. So the Quraysh at this point in time were given the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, it's not the whole book, right? They were given clips. The verses came down bit by bit, gradually, right? In explaining situations, in removing in helping people to remove habits which are wrong, superstitions and traditions, and nonsensical religious activities, right? Slowly slowly imbibing love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understanding who Allah is. That's the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they had a taste of the divinity of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And most of them are aware that this kind of literature cannot be from a human being. But they denied, Allah says, and like that also, bakadaba, and denied those min qablihim before them. These are considered to be similar to those, they are considered to be similar to those who denied before them. They are there. It's a this. So Allah says there's nothing different here. All of them who were given this message denied the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So they could deny, the others also have denied. وَمَا بَلَغُوا مِعْشَارًا, and not they reach a tenth of what ma atainahum, of what we gave them. فَكَذَّبُوا, then they denied my Rasul, my messengers. So these are app warnings inserted in the discourse. Those nations are being referred to who are far mightier and majestic than the Quraysh. That means whatever the Quraysh have is not even 1/10 of what those great communities have. Right? The communities that are referred to would be Fir'aun, very powerful and rich. The people of Ad, very powerful and rich, and the people of Thamud, very powerful and rich. So what the Quraysh have, the Quraysh, of course, are trying to hold on to their position as the custodian of Masjid Haram, right? Because in being the custodians of Masjid Haram, despite the fact that they have to spend money maybe to look after the Hujjaj, but they still gain a lot of money from the Hujjaj, from the pilgrims. The word mi'sar here, mi'shar, is derived from the word ushur, and it is the same meaning as 1/10. Ashara. Ashara is 10. So mi'shar also means 1/10. Some commentators have taken it with the sense of 100th, but many Arabic dictionaries and commentaries have mentioned the first meaning for it. That means not even 1/10 of what they had. But however, these kinds of figures do not refer to the number, and they are used to show scantiness in comparison with the figures like. So it's not really a number that can be proven, right? But it is just to show, it's just so little, not even 10%. 770 or 1,000 alike, which are used to show multiplicity. Right? When they say Rasulullah SAW recite the istighfar 70 times, the word 70 means a lot. So it is not really 70 times, all right? When they denied the messenger of God, Rasulullah SAW, they were inflicted by severe punishment. Thus, if their resources and affluence have made them arrogant, then this has no basis, because what they have is not even 1/10 of what those people who had their might, their power. Allah talks about their power, their might, right? And their wealth doesn't help them in the least. Just one blow from Allah was enough to wipe out powerful and mighty nations. And what in Surah Yasin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about this group of people who denied the 3 messengers, right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent just a blast, a sound, loud shout, and the whole town was quiet, silenced. Allah doesn't need to send an army. Allah says to destroy them. Just one shout, and that's it, all gone, all dead. So what good are the Quraysh? So Allah is saying 1/10. No, what they have is not even 1/10 of what these rich nations have. They are far below in power and might. There's nothing for them to hold on to or to be arrogant about, right? And denying the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرٌ. How then it was it was my disapproval of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on them. Screen. Surah then touches their hearts by reminding them of the destruction of earlier communities, right? So Allah disapproved of these communities who denounce his, use the word my, right? My Rasuls. They denied my Rasuls. Because they denied my Rasuls, how then was my disapproval of them, right? This Allah shows closeness to his Rasuls, to his messengers. These are messengers which he sent out of his mercy to bring people to guidance, and yet they deny the messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he disapproved of them. So the question is, how then was my disapproval? So that means they were punished. These communities were much more powerful and rich. They were condemned for denying the messengers. This condemnation destroyed them all. The Quraysh knew of some of all these old communities who suffered Allah's punishment. Therefore, this brief reminder is sufficient. So it doesn't have to be talking about so much about them. It is just a short mention here, and they knew how the people of Thamud, the Nabi Saleh, how they were destroyed because they would pass by Madain Saleh as they moved north to carry to buy wares from merchandise from Syria. When they moved that south, they would pass by the Ad, very powerful, huge people, tall and powerful people, right, making all kinds of things, unimaginable things, and they saw the destruction of these people. It comes in the form of a sarcastic question: how terrible was my condemnation of these people? It is a question put to those who knew the extent of that condemnation. So it's nothing new. Stories abound about these people, the people of Sabah. We've heard about Sabah. We were with the stories of Sabah. They had these beautiful gardens, right? And they were given lots of good things. They had dams, and they were destroyed. All say, innama, only that, a'idhukum, I counsel you biwahida, with one thing. Antaqumu lillah, that you stand for Allah. Mathna wa furada, in twos and singly. Thumma tatafakkaru, then you think, ma bisahibikum, not with your companion any madness. With your companion, not with your companion. And ma bisahibukum, not with your companion any madness. Jinnah min jinnah, in huwa, not he, illa but nadhirun, a warner, lakum, for you, baina yaday, between your, in front of you, adhabin shadid, a terrible punishment. Say, I exhort you only to one thing, that rise up for Allah's sake in twos and singly, then ponder. There is no madness in your fellow citizen. He is only a warner to you before a severe chastisement. All right. So Allah says, Qul, say, it's an instruction to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Only that I warn you, or I counsel you with one thing. So Rasulullah is instructed to say to these people that he counsels them with only one thing. He's only going to tell them one thing, very important thing. What is the thing that he wants to tell them? Rasulullah is told to answer this objection by earnestly asking them to follow an advice. That's the only thing he asks of them. One advice, antaqumu lillah, and that you stand up for Allah. Mathna, in twos, wa furada, or singly, thumma tatafakkarun, and then you start to think. The advice is that while shunning stubbornness, bias, and conceit, that you stand up in pairs or singly and seriously listen to his message and reflect on it. The word lillah is meant to point out to them that till that time they had been guided by the evil desires and Satan, and hence they could deliberate on the matter in an unbiased way. So they need to just stand up. Of course, what is important to understand here is that the Arabs believe in Allah. So Nabi Muhammad is telling them, stand up only for Allah, not for any of your other gods. Put all the other gods away. Either two of you stand up and start thinking, or just one of you alone stand up and start thinking and think and stand up for Allah. That means do it only for Allah. Right? Remember, they believe in Allah. Right? And you would get what is right. However, Allah has the greatest right on a person. And they too believe in Allah. So for the sake of Allah, you should stand up afresh to reflect on the actual reality while rising above all vested interests. And up here refers turning towards Allah and striving for Him. That means do it only for Allah, the creator of the universe. And they know that because the Quran has said, if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they would say it is Allah. Though this request will weigh heavily on them in this atmosphere of vested interest, but for the sake of Allah, they should tolerate it. So think about it. Ask yourself, this is the right attitude. This is the way they should be if they are people of truth. They really want to know about their true selves, then do this. This is what Muhammad was asked to ask them. Mathna suggests that mobs are incapable of thinking. Two of you enough. Two of you together, sit down and think. Or just alone is enough. A lot of you will just confuse things as well. Till then, the attitude has been that as soon as Rasulullah SAW would utter anything, the miscreants among them would launch a propaganda against him so that no one is able to listen and understand what he has to say. So the instruction is, stand up for Allah, start to think only in twos or alone. They should now give up this attitude and now come to him singly or in pairs and intently listen to what he has to say to them. They should reflect on what he has to say and discuss their doubts with him and seek their answers from him, and then reflect if what he is saying are the words of a man possessed, a person possessed, or these words actually portray the fate they shall necessarily meet. So ask yourself, sit down, listen to Rasulullah SAW, but only two of you. Not more than that. Maximum two, one or two. There is a short pause after tafakkaru, and this pause is very subtle. It is as if after inviting people to reflect, they are also given some time for it. So that is, when they read the Quran, you will notice there's a pause there. So that is to make them start to think. After that, the conclusion they should reach after reflection is put forth before them. Ma bisahibikum min jinnah, not your sahabat, your friend here, right, of the jinn, or being possessed by the jinn. If they seriously reflect, it will become evident that their companion is not inflicting, jinnah is madness. Actually, jinnah, of course, we sound like jinn, madness. Majnoon, mad, so crazy. Now, people who are possessed by the jinn usually are thought to be crazy. Right? Or crazy people are always seen as people possessed by the jinn. Right? So here, sorry, I made a mistake. So ma bi sahibikum min jinnah, not your sahaba here of those who are mad. The fact is that their own intellects are covered with bias and they are trying to harass him by rallying against him in multitudes. The word sahib refers to the fact that the person they regard as mad and unpossessed is not someone new to them. When you talk about sahaba doesn't mean a very close friend, but sahaba is one who lives among you and you know him quite well. Right? You might not like him, but you know him quite well because he's been there with you for a long time. Rasulullah, of course, grew up in Mecca and then later on he went to Medina, but the people of Mecca, right, are quite familiar with his ways. He's someone born and raised among them before their very eyes. It is in all this time they saw that he was part of all their virtuous acts and abstained from all their vices. They honored him, right? They respect him, they believe in him before his prophethood. Right, for example, we know that there was a dispute concerning the black stone. There was a repair of the Kaaba and the black stone was removed from its position. And then when they decided to put it back, they were quarreling about who should be putting it back. And Rasulullah came in at that time and they saw him and they asked him to mediate over the issue. So he says, let's put the stone on a piece of cloth and everyone to carry the cloth to the corner of the Aswad corner and put it nicely in. And also took it up and put it there. So that solved the problem. They trusted him. They trusted him. Even after he became a prophet, they would trust him with their jewelries and their valuables when they go overseas, right? Because they know he is trustworthy. They found him to be sadiq, truthful, and amin, trustworthy in every trial and test. So you know him very well. He's not met. Definitely, you know he's not met. They really trusted his insight and wisdom and regarded him to be someone very prudent. But today, they are regarding this prudent person as one possessed. They should reflect whether he is possessed or are they possessed. In huwa, not he, but illa nadhir. He's just a warner for you. He's there as a warner for you. Baina yadai adha. In front of you, right, is this terrible punishment. So he warns you about this terrible punishment that is coming ahead of you. The sermon is very apt. They do witness that only one thought and idea dominates his call. And he continues to remind and warn them of this worldly and next worldly punishment at every instant. Moreover, in spite of all their opposition, harassments, and oppressions, he continues to come to them. Surely this anxiety of his is not because of he is insane. We see him as very eager or very concerned, very sad that they are not listening to him. His first message has always been there is a next world. And if you do not do things right, you would be punished in the next world. And also in this world, also life will not be good for you. So despite whatever they do to him, their oppositions, their harassments, and their oppressions, he still continues anxiously calling them to the right path. The real reason is that he is seeing with his eyes the punishment which is looming over their heads, yet they are not being able to see it. His worry and anxiety springs from his sympathy for them. However, because of their blind frenzy, they regard his anxiety to be madness and lunacy. So you think it's crazy trying to convince them about the next world, which they don't believe is ever going to happen. So they consider him crazy to do that. But if they sit down and think alone, they will realize that he is truthful. And there is a real danger of the terrible punishment. It is not in metaphorical terms that the messenger of Allah sees the punishment looming over his nation. It is an absolute reality. The messenger is like a cloud of mercy for his nation, yet concealed in his cloud is a thunder of punishment as well if his nation rejects him. So that's how they give that imagery of a messenger, a cloud of mercy, but in that cloud there is thunder to destroy. This worldly punishment is a prelude to the punishment of the hereafter. For this reason, each messenger has warned his nation of both these punishments and warned them with such conviction as if he is seeing these punishments from his very eyes. Right? Punishment, like we see Fir'aun being punished, he died in the being drowned, and Allah mentioned that in the next world he will be in hell, punished further, so that they will get a punishment in this world, and also so the punishment in this world does not redeem their sins, but they will get a worse punishment in the next world. Yet people devoid of insight regarded this conviction to be lunacy. Right? People who are really working very hard, trying to show Rasulullah, the messengers are trying to think, being beaten up, being thrown, being abused, and yet he persevered. His sin is crazy because they have no insight. The proclamation of wasahibaha, what made Rasulullah at the Safa, he's calling wasabaha, was a manifestation of his conviction. He's calling all of them, right? Early in the morning at the Jabal Safa, Jabal, small hill, Safa Marwah. Safa is actually it's Qubais, Jabal Qubais. He calls all of them to remind them. However, the leaders of the Quraysh, instead of paying heed to it, made fun of it. So we had history, right, of how he called them he stand up and he called all of them, right, to attention and remind them of the next one. Imam Ahmad relates the following hadith. Rasulullah SAW came out one day and called us 3 times and said, do you realize what my position is in relation to you? People said, Allah and His Messenger know best. He rejoined, my position in relation to you is like that of a community who feared that an enemy might be heading towards them. So they sent one of them to gather intelligence. If he went before about his mission, he saw the enemy drawing near and he moved fast to warn his people. As he went about his mission, he saw the enemy drawing near and he moved fast to warn his people. So this is what a messenger is. They have gone ahead and they saw that danger is coming and they come back to tell their friends and their community. However, he feared that he might be caught by the enemy before he could warn his people. So he waved his robe and shouted, the enemy is nigh, the enemy is nigh. So he himself, right, might not be able to, might be punished, might be caught up by the enemy, maybe the death. And so he needs to call out to his people. Another hadith, Rasulullah SAW is quoted as saying, I was sent with my message at the approach of the last hour. It could have almost been ahead of me. That means last hour might just come and I am sent the message. All right. Qul say, ma sa'altukum, ma, not I asked you, min ajr, of any reward, or any reward, fahuwa lakum, then it for you. In ajriya, not my reward, but illa ala Allah, on Allah, but on Allah. Wa huwa, and he, ala kulli shay'in shaheed, on everything a witness. Say, whatever reward I have asked of you, that is only for yourselves. My reward is only with Allah and He is a witness of all things. So Qul say, Rasulullah is instructed to say, ma sa'altukum, whatever I ask of you of reward, min ajr fahuwa lakum, that is for you. So if I ever ask you for any repayment or whatever, it is for you. Mohsin Han says, this is a translation by Mohsin Hans. Say, whatever wage I might have asked of you is yours. My wage is from Allah only, and He is witness over all things. Abarisi say, I have asked no wage of you, that shall be yours. My wage falls only upon Allah, and He is witness over everything. So here there is difference in translation. The ma, can, as we know in Arabic, right, can be what and can be not. So Mohsin say, whatever which, ma sa'al, whatever I ask you of which. But this Abari is saying ma means not. Ma can be not. It says not I ask you any which, right, but it is for you alone. There are 2 ways of looking at this verse. One of them is that Rasulullah is to convey to his addressee that he has not asked any reward of his service, so that they are shying away from him, as if this rests with Allah alone. My reward is only with Allah, right? So there is no reason for you to be afraid of what I'm asking you to do. The other one is that Rasulullah is told to communicate to his addressee that if he has requested them to something which they regard to be remuneration and are burdened by it, then this is not for his own self, but for their own benefit, both in this world and the next. So if in case they see him as being asking them something, and whatever that he asked for, that they find it difficult, is for themselves and for their own benefit in this world and the next. So there are several verses which state the first of the above meanings. References are not needed. So here in the verse under discussion, the second of the above meaning is implied. That means he does not. The first verse is that whatever he asks, right, is for them. Second one says he asks anything, his reward is with Allah. Here are a few parallel verses. It is Surah Furqan. He says, "Qul ma as'alukum alayhi min ajr." Not I ask you of it any reward, illa man sha'a, except whatever wish, ayyattakhidha ila rabbihi sabila. Right? That he takes to his Rabb a path. I have not demanded any reward from you, except that whoever wants should adopt the path of his Rabb. Rasulullah SAW is asked to tell his addressees that he has not desired from them any remuneration for his service. If he has desired anything, it is for them, and that it is he would like to show the straight path to whoever among them wants to tread the path that leads to Allah. So whatever he asked them is for them. That means to show them how to move to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similarly, this is in Surah Shura. قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا. Say not, I ask of you, from you of it any reward, إِلَّا مَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى, except there is love and affection in the relations. The Prophet's addresses regard this invitation to spend in the cause of Allah and to honor familiar ties to be a burden, then he is not doing this for his own self, but for them and their relatives and kin. In ajriya illa ala Allah, sure not my reward, but on Allah. Prophet ﷺ in the first place has not asked his addressees for any remuneration for his preaching. So he didn't ask for reward, doesn't ask for money. His reward and remuneration rests with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever reward is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's only from Allah. He doesn't need them to give them anything. However, if they consider any of his demands a burden and regard them as his reward, then this is merely their misconception and wrong understanding. Whatever he asks from them is for them alone and not for his own self. If he wants them of fearing Allah and paying heed to the day of judgment, urges them to do virtuous deeds, spend in the way of Allah, feed the orphans and the needy, liberate slaves, then none of these things is of any personal benefit to him. The fact of the matter is that both the individual and collective benefit is for them. So whatever he asks them is only for them, not for him. If they follow these things, they will succeed both in this world and in the next. So wherever the above statement in the Quran, it is meant to rebuke the addressees. Here the Prophet ﷺ should convey to those who reject his message that he, after all, has not asked for any payment that might stop them from coming to him and hearing his message. They can come to him anytime and without any hesitation. There is no restriction on anyone to come to him. His door is open for one and all. They do come, then this will harm him. This will harm him the least. If they do not come, it will harm him the least. If they come, they will, however, harm themselves. So they don't come to Rasulullah ﷺ to seek advice, then they will be harmed. He will not be harmed. It is not that Rasulullah ﷺ will suffer any loss if they do not come. What he has obtained from Allah is free. He wants to give to others. Allah will reward him. And he on everything, Shay'in Shaheed. Allah witnesses everything. I have Allah as my witness. So Allah, who has taken the responsibility of the Prophet's reward, is watching over everything. He is quite sure that Allah witnesses the smallness of his deeds. He is observing the Prophet's efforts and the ill ways of his opponents. Prophet ﷺ fully trusts Allah in rewarding him for his efforts. He sees and knows everything. So Allah witnessed whatever I do, what Rasulullah did, but all the things that he did and how they reacted towards him. Nothing is hidden from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is my witness in whatever I intend, say, or do. So that's about Surah Sabah. And Rasulullah is the witness. Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa anta khalaqtani wa ana abduka wa ana ala ahdika wa wa'dika mastata'tu a'udzu bika min syarri ma sana'tu abu'u laka bi ni'matika alayya wa abu'u bi dhanbi faghfir li innahu la yaghfiru dhunuba illa anta. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbana anfa'na bima 'allamtana. Rabbi 'allimna alladhi yanfa'una. Rabbi faqihna wa faqih ahlana wa qarabatil lana fi dinina ma'a ahli al-khutri unsa wa dhakar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal 'asri innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus solihati wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.